You are enjoying the miracle of radio. Radio at its finest over frequency modulation.
You got your ears on break 19.
One of the greatest threats to American family values is the way our popular culture treats them and ridicules them.
Give us that weasel tune again.
Let's talk about what the welfare state has created. Let's talk about the moral decay of the world the left is defending.
The media, as Malcolm predicted, would attempt to homogenize and whiten, distort his message.
Especially if people are scared, and you look for some enemy who's responsible for it. Jews or blacks or welfare mothers or third world robbers or whatever it may be.
Aren't you paranoid, dear? That all blacks are welfare and criminals?
You heard me say that? You are a goddamn bitch.
You can either take it personally and say, I'm a zapatista too, because I believe all human beings should have dignity and jobs and health and housing.
The new world we see is shaped by an idea. It's a common kinship.
From death row, this is Mania Jamal.
This year, let's give the folks at home something to cheer about.
The genius of American democracy has been to combine very high level of freedom with almost total inability to use it.
This is Radio Free Los Angeles, broadcasting live from behind enemy lines on Inauguration Night, 1997. I'm Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, and tonight's guests include Beck, Cypress Hill, Zach De La Rocha, Flea, Stephen Perkins, and me, all jamming together. It's Inauguration Night, and our inaugural night correspondent is Michael Moore, who brought us TV Nation and a lot of other kick-ass stuff. He'll be up in 1 second. But what would an inauguration night be without a president yakking on about something? With that in mind, we cut to our commander-in-chief.
We have voted out the entire top level of the United States government, but the thugs and criminals are still there, still in power, brutal as ever.
This is America. This is America. This is America. This is America. An America hijacked by privileged private interests. I am a product of that status quo. You must work harder for lower pay. That is your part in the new global economy. This is America. This is America. This is America. This is America. An America with the world's strongest defense.
Since the Cold War ended, new challenges to American interests have emerged. The growing threat of peace and freedom. And our goal is to always be the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction.
Defense spending is a privilege. And those who cut deals have been rewarded. This is America. This is America. One nation.
Indivisible.
God.
Under God.
Under.
One nation.
In.
God.
With liberty.
Indivisible.
And justice.
This is America.
Well, thanks a lot, guys, for having me on here. Radio Free LA on the big inauguration night. Radio Free LA, also known as Dornan Free LA, also known as Furman Free LA. That's right. It's getting a little bit better out there, isn't it? Well, can somebody please tell me what the difference is between a Democrat and a Republican? You know what we should do right now is call Republican National Headquarters in Washington, D.C., and just tell them, hey, cheer up, be happy, congratulations, you've got a Republican in the White House. Why don't we try and let's get them on the phone right now.
Thank you for using AT&T.
Oh, thank you, AT&T, for laying off about 40,000 people.
City, please.
Yeah, Washington, D.C.
Listing, please.
I would like the number for the national headquarters of the Republican Party. I'll call these guys up. They're probably a little depressed today. I want them to, feel a little better about what's going on.
Press office, may I help you?
Yeah, this is Michael Moore. I'm calling from Radio Free LA.
Hi, Michael. How you doing?
Good. You're on the air right now.
Oh, terrific.
All right.
Do you do a lot of these kind of calls where you just call people up at random and say you're on the radio?
No, only tonight because, I wanted to congratulate the Republicans for winning the White House.
Perhaps you've got us confused with another political party.
You mean the Democrats?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not really confusion. I think Bill Clinton did such a great job of acting and sounding like a Republican during the campaign that, we should give credit to where credit is due, the Republican Party.
Now I understand. Well, I'll tell you what, Bill Clinton is probably the first Republican to ever be nominated at a Democrat convention.
Exactly my point.
Yeah, I tell you, during the 1996 campaign, he sounded quite a lot as if Ronald Reagan had taken over his body to every other conservative's cause you can think of, not to mention taking credit for 14 Republican initiatives in his acceptance speech in Chicago. As long as Mr. Clinton sticks by his campaign, I'm sure he'll have a splendid time getting along with the leadership of the 105th Congress.
It was almost like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Somehow the Republicans, they sort of come down in those evil pods or whatever, and Clinton had touched one of them or something, and then suddenly became a Republican.
Yeah, or like GOP Borg from Star Trek, The Next Generation. You will be assimilated.
This is my theory. And now here we are on Inauguration night, with Bill Clinton, the Republican, wearing Democrats' clothing, being sworn into office today and getting another 4 years. And what's he going to do? You got to remember this one important fact. Bill Clinton received more corporate contributions in the final weeks of the campaign this year than Bob Dole. The Democrat was the voice of the corporate American elite. And I think it's really sad that in a country of this many people, that the richest 1%, who own 40% of all the wealth, get to have two political parties that now do their bidding, the Democrats and the Republicans. And the rest of us, the other 99%, have no political parties. That is absolutely insane. That has to change. We cannot go through this again in the year 2000 at the next election. And all of us have to start doing something right now, today, doing something to get out there, get involved, get active, get involved in these third parties, the Greens Party, the Labor Party, the New Party, whatever it is. But let's do something because I can't let this happen again. So if we get involved, maybe we'll have some other party than the Republican Party that now runs the country. And isn't it odd that we now have a one-party system, just like that old Soviet Union we fought for 50 years. We now end up with that very thing they had us all scared about for 50 whole years. A one-party country, one party, one candidate, one nation. Well, I like to say one evil empire down, one to go.
That was Michael Moore on Radio Free Los Angeles. And now, please welcome Beck.
All right, here's a song I wrote about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's about shutting out all the voices that aren't yours, and all the nonsense and noise, and shutting them all out so you can hear your own. It's called Pay No Mind. Tonight, the city is full of morgues, and all the toilets are overflowing. There's shopping malls ripping out from the walls as they walk out among the manure. That's why pay no mind. I pay no mind. I pay no mind. can give the finger to the rock and roll singer as he's standing down on your paycheck eviction slip, and the sales ride low through the garbage pail glow down below, through the ghetto blasting sun. That's why I pay no mind. I pay no mind. I pay no mind. That's why I pay no mind. I pay no mind. I pay no mind. So get out your lead pipe dreams, or get out your 10-foot flags. The insects are huge, and the poison's all been used. The poison's all been used. That's why I pay no mind. I pay no mind. I pay no mind. All right. So, how much time do I got? 10 minutes? Okay. I wanted to play some songs play something by Woody Guthrie, who was a big influence on me, and he was one of the most astute political songwriters, I think, chroniclers of American political situations. I'll just play a little bit of this one. It's called I Ain't Got No Home in This World Anymore. And at the time he was talking about all the refugees from Oklahoma that in the dust storm disasters they had. But it's pretty applicable to any kind of situation. When you, not necessarily not having a roof under your head, but even if the place where you live, you don't feel at home there, or you don't relate to it. Well, I ain't got no home, I'm just wandering round. Just a rambling worker, I go from town to town. And the police make it hard wherever I may go. And I ain't got no home in this world anymore. was working on the shelves, well, always I was born. Dust storms did blow, hope they don't come back no more. My wife took sick and died, upon the kitchen floor. And I ain't got no home in this world anymore. Well, I ain't got no home in this world anymore. Ain't got no home in this world anymore. Well, the police may get hard wherever I may go. I ain't got no home in this world anymore. Well, it's got a hell of a lot more verses, but I can't remember them right now. So I think I got time for one more, I think. All right. Let me have that one. All right, this is a song, it's a spiritual. Learned it off of a bluesman named Son House. And kind of sent it out to all the political grandstanding and glad-handing and all the feel-good stuff going on. The big victory day. Because sometimes it feels like so much of politics is all about PR. It's like a big PR thing. It's all. So this is called Don't You Mind People Grinning in Your Face. Kind of look through the grins. Don't you mind the people grinning in your face? Don't you mind people grinning in your face? Just bear this in mind, a true friend is hard to find. But don't you mind people grinning in your face? You know, people will talk about you, your brothers and your sisters too. Don't matter how you're trying to live, they talk about you still. But just bear this in mind, a true friend is hard to find. Don't you mind people grinning in your face? They'll jump you up and down, and they'll carry you round and round. And just as soon as your back is turned, you know they'll try to crush you down. Just bear this in mind, a true friend is hard to find. Don't you mind people grinning in your face?
That was
right,
back on Radio Free Los Angeles. And now we have Emily Hodgson, our teen rights correspondent. Emily's 15 years old and is a student at Santa Monica High School. And Emily, welcome to Radio Free LA.
Hello, sweet Tommy. Did you know that we, as minors, are denied basic human rights? We assume we have been gaining rights over the past 20 years. In reality, we have been losing ground. But our situation is not hopeless. With knowledge and determination, we can turn things around. I think these are some of the things we should be fighting for. The right to have a say in custody decisions that affect us. The right to say no to searches at school unless the school official has a warrant. Guaranteed access to health care and a safe living environment. The right to say no to random drug testing at school. The right to have an abortion without having to involve a parent or a judge. The right not to be spanked, paddled, or hit at home or at school. And a lower voting age. I hope you all feel as strongly about young people's rights as I do. You are, of course, entitled to your own opinions, but I believe that we should make sure that all human beings, regardless of age, have the rights they need to make their own choices. The American Civil Liberties Union can help us fight for some of these rights. The information about how to start an ACLU group at your high school or college, you can call Andrew Schneider at the American Civil Liberties Union. The number is 212-944-9800, extension 418. I'm Emily Hodgson on Radio Free LA.
Thank you very much, Em. Leonard Peltier is a political prisoner right here in the United States. As one of the leaders of the American Indian movement, he was targeted by the FBI for demanding just treatment for Native Americans and found guilty on trumped-up charges of killing 2 FBI agents on the Pine Ridge Reservation in 1975. Peltier is considered a prisoner of conscience by Amnesty International, and despite continued international outcry, remains in jail. Hey, Leonard.
Yes.
Hey, how are you doing?
All right, Tom, how are you doing?
Excellent. Welcome to Radio Free Los Angeles.
All right, thank you.
Let's just get down to business then. There's overwhelming evidence of your innocence, right? And overwhelming evidence of misconduct by the prosecution in the case, and a huge international support for your release. So why is it that the U.S. government is still keeping you in jail?
Well, it's a tough question to answer because we really don't have any answers for it. That's all speculation, and the only thing that we can come up with is that the government wants somebody to pay for the shootings of their agents, and it's unfortunate that I'm that individual.
Mm-hmm.
It's surprising to many of us that the FBI would have such control over the justice system, the court system, to whereas I can't get no justice in the courts.
Right. How long
We've been able to prove that the murder weapon, the so-called strongest evidence against me, was manufactured.
Right. Right. I mean, yeah, there's just a long litany of abuses.
A long list. It's just one of many issues. Yeah.
Right. How long have you been in prison now?
I've been in February 6th, 96 was 20 years, so I've been in 20 plus.
Wow. Why do you think the FBI found the American Indian movement such a threat to, national security?
Well, there was many reasons. The termination policy was in effect that they wanted to terminate all the Indian reservations in the United States, which is something I had been working on since the 50s, opposing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And involved in it was large masses of land, mineral rights, and the exposure of the discrimination against Native people, the injustices in the courtrooms, and there was millions and millions of dollars involved in this whole stroke, billions of dollars involved, and the government and non-Indian citizens were going to lose out on that. Those that were pushing termination policy.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a big move to squash the American Indian movement.
Right. So the biggest hole in the prosecution's case is that they've even admitted now that they don't know who shot the FBI agents, right?
Right. So I was prosecuted on first-degree murder on circumstantial evidence. But people have to remember the circumstances of it. You know, we had an all-white jury that my trial was moved into an area where anti-sentiment is real strong there. I mean, it's still to this day. And I had admitted racists on the jury. You know, the closing argument of Lynn Crooks, the prosecutor, was that the most strongest evidence against me was the murder weapon. We found that the murder weapon was a manufactured piece.
Hello? Oh. Hi, Leonard. Sorry about that. One of the perils of recording calls from Leavenworth.
Springfield.
Springfield now. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
still at Springfield.
Oh, right.
I'm expecting to be moved back to Leavenworth for rehabilitation of my jaw and my health.
Oh, right. So
a week or so.
So I'm sorry.
We found that the government claimed that the strongest evidence against me at the trial was the murder weapon, and we found that through the Freedom of Information lawsuit that this strongest evidence against me, the murder weapon, was manufactured.
Right.
They claimed they couldn't do a firing test on it, and we found documentation that they had, and it came out negative. Well, at that 8th Circuit Court of Appeals hearing, oral arguments it's called, the judges asked the prosecutor just what was Mr. Peltier charged with and convicted of, as we cannot find any evidence of first-degree murder in the record. And that's when Crooks made the first statement that we don't know who killed the agents, nor do we know what participation Leonard Peltier may have played in it.
Right.
So I've been in prison since 1985, where the government has admitted that they don't know what I'm in prison for.
Right. I mean, it's pretty shameful because people assume that it's only other countries that have political prisoners, and it seems pretty clear that you're in prison now more for your beliefs. Hello? Lost him. The interview with Leonard while at Springfield Medical Center was cut off because the medical center stated that Leonard is not allowed to make phone calls that are forwarded. This was an attempt to prevent him from helping to free himself. He spent time in solitary prior to being shipped back to Leavenworth, where his phone privileges have also been curtailed. Several prison staff commented that they'd never heard of an administration punishing anyone so harshly for a phone call. He's been told that it was probably a way to keep him away from the media. If you want to help Leonard Peltier get out of jail, please contact the president and demand executive clemency. Write Bill Clinton at the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C., 20500, or phone his ass at 202-456-1111 and hit 0 to avoid all the survey stuff. Also, please contact the Leonard Peltier Defense Committee at P.O. Box 583, Lawrence, Kansas, 66044, or email them at lpdc@idir.net, or phone 913-842-5774. Radio Free Los Angeles is also being broadcast live on the internet at www.radiofreela, where you can get a complete transcript of the interviews appearing on the show tonight. In just a minute, we've got more music coming up from Cypress Hill and Zach De La Rocha, Flea, Stephen Perkins, and myself, Tom Morello, on Radio Free LA. But right now, we've got Chuck D live on the phone from Atlanta, Georgia. Chuck, you there?
Hey, what's up, Tom?
Hey, how's it going, man?
I'm all right. What's up, L.A.?
We're just hanging out on Radio Free LA, and it's been almost 30 years since today's Martin Luther King Day as well as the inauguration, which has kind of eclipsed
exactly
that holiday,
which isn't it, right?
Right, which took a long time to get. But it's been almost 30 years since MLK's assassination. Chuck, what do you think he'd have to say about race relations in 1996?
I think in certain ways, he would look at it and be angered. And in some other ways, he probably would be like, okay, I did this. But sometimes as you go one step ahead, you don't notice the two steps backwards.
Right.
So, who knows? I mean, he would definitely look at certain situations. And, one thing I like to say that Dr. King definitely wasn't no punk. So he would have definitely, put his foot forward in some area that definitely needed it.
Right.
So I think he was good enough to recognize the subtle ways of racism as well as the overt. You know, back in the 60s, there was a lot of overt things happening. Today, it's a lot of subtle things happening.
Right.
So he probably would have brought a lot of stuff to the table, and people would have still said he was crazy.
Like when they were putting through the whole Martin Luther King holiday and trying to sell it to the different states and stuff, it seems to me like they always emphasized the early Martin Luther King. You know, like in the early days, it was all about, you know, the Christian nonviolence and desegregation. And later on, you know, before his death in '68, his emphasis had changed very much. He realized, you know, what is obvious now, that just because you desegregate a lunch counter doesn't mean that you have economic justice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he was keen enough to see a lot of different things, and that's when the heat was on.
Right.
And the counterintelligence program by the Coming in America All-Stars.
Right.
Kind of, you know, like highlighted that particular activity.
Right.
You know, and there's no big secret. Also, 30 years later, that the same program that recognized his keen sense of America's hypocrisy. Actually has been busted for bringing drugs into South Central L.A.
Right.
And that being the only place where we caught them out there.
Right, and even that they're trying to sweep under the rug, right? That's just like supposed to be this little asterisk on, you know, for 1996.
No doubt, but when you sweep things under the rug, there's usually a lump. Lumpy carpet,
and it's showing. Yeah, and you know the way they've tried to sort of whitewash this holiday of Martin Luther King. You know, towards the end of his life, he was much more confrontational, and you know, believe that, and he was organizing the Poor People's March, and it was racism. I think he realized was one symptom of something that went even deeper, and that those are still issues that need to be confronted.
I know, you know, it's one thing is, you know, we can always say what if, you know, but who knows? I mean, you're talking 30 years later, and so many things which has happened here in the place to be, as they say. So I mean, you know, people, you know, when they see a situation a lot better than when they were younger, you know, happen to pick up a viewpoint that happens to hit it more on the head.
Right.
And you know, they rarely talk about it. I think they talk about a 39-year-old man's you know, point of view, you know.
Yeah.
And also, you know, you got to understand, even when they talk about Dr. King before 63, you know, he's hardcore, man.
Yeah.
Straight up, look, I'm going to do this. I ain't going to talk about it. And if I got to sit up in the joint, you know, so be it. But I want y'all to understand. So, you know, he was no punk.
Right, absolutely not. And nonviolence then was so confrontational, you know. It was
exactly,
just,
you know, because he knew that if he pushed the envelope to the point, you know, if you got a force of people behind him, it wouldn't really be a violent type of thing anyway. It would be a standoff.
Right. Well, Chuck, thank you very much for being on Radio Free LA, and happy MLK Day.
Yeah, and also thanks, Tom, for what you always do and what you're doing, and also to those that down with the force, you know, hey, you know, keep doing your thing.
Right on. All right, talk to you soon, Chuck.
Peace.
Okay, later. All right, then. It's inauguration night here on Radio Free Los Angeles, and we're going to review now. You know, an inauguration night, we had the Clinton speech today, and I'm sure that was very flowery and very excellent. But you know what? There's been some really great inaugural addresses of the past. And we'd like to review some of those now. So please, your attention for Ronald Reagan's inaugural speech.
At me. I'm going to start to tell the truth. You know, the truth of the matter is our policy had always been based on terrorist activities and so forth. What I was trying to do was terrorism. I would suggest that never would it be termed democracy. It's totally dishonest. The Boland Amendment, there's never been any such thing. It is the responsibility of this government to tell falsehoods to the American people. As a matter of fact, it's specified that under the Secretary of State, we should get some people killed in order to prevent their being established the group that wanted democracy. We will not discuss how we could have better relations because it's only going to cause more democracy and freedom in their country. No victor, no profit. You see, I'm old-fashioned. I still do business with the industries and so forth, which makes Civil War profitable. I set the policy just for money. I think that most people in business will support our program of nuclear missile attack. We now have quite a system installed of of weaponry, mainly TOW missiles, aimed at the American people, you could interfere and set us back in what we were trying to accomplish. And this is when we took a look at this totally dishonest policy. And I set the policy. And I, more than anyone, have no reason to encourage democracy and freedom. And it'll be some time before we do.
Called the voice of the voiceless for his eloquent reporting on racism and police brutality, Mumia Abu-Jamal is a former Black Panther and award-winning journalist. Framed for the killing of a Philadelphia police officer 15 years ago and put through a racist farce of a trial, he spent the last 11 years on death row. Recently, a witness named Veronica Jones has come forward despite police threats to offer new evidence of Mumia's innocence. Immediately following the Mumia interview, we will go live to Zach De La Rocha, Flea, Stephen Perkins, and myself playing some rock music. But right now, Mumia Abu-Jamal.
For Tom, please say your name.
Mumia for Tom.
I accept the call.
On the move.
Mumia, welcome. Thank you so much for using one of your only 2 calls a month to be on Radio Free LA.
Well, I appreciate the work you guys have been doing. I mean, so, it's well worth that small sacrifice.
I was wondering if you had a message for Bill Clinton as he enters his next 4 years.
You have an administration that is doing a lot of things that Reagan and Bush would have found impossible. Death penalty Democrats, Democrats who wage war on the poor, Democrats who are anti-democratic in the extreme.
Yeah, and the ironic thing about the Counterterrorism Act is that, some of the greatest acts of terror are conducted by the state.
Well, I think that everything that the state has done is designed to protect them.
Right.
Their domestic war against the poor here in America. They will use the name Saddam Hussein, but it isn't Saddam Hussein who almost beat Rodney King to it and injured his life.
Right.
You see, it isn't Saddam Hussein who's shooting and killing and brutalizing Black and Latino and poor people in every city and every state of the Union.
Right.
You see.
And those figures continue to be inflated. I read a recent interview of yours where it was something like an incredible statistic with 79,000 cases a year that are reported of police brutality.
Exactly.
Yeah, something like that. And that's probably the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly, because most people are terrified.
Yeah.
They don't report.
Absolutely.
They take their licking and go home.
Absolutely. There are huge miscarriages of justice in the initial trial, and that seems to have carried through right until today. Can you tell us what happened with who Veronica Jones is and what happened?
Well, Veronica Jones was a witness who testified in the original trial, who said that the statement that she gave, which was that she saw someone running away, was not true. She said that at the original trial, she said that she didn't give the statement and that the signature on there wasn't hers.
Right.
Recently, she revealed that she was approached by 2 detectives while she was incarcerated. When she testified at the original trial, she was in jail. And they threatened her. So when she finally came forward and said, yes, I lied at the original trial and I was coerced to lie, she was literally arrested and taken off the stand in handcuffs.
One of the great falsehoods about youth in America today is that they're an apathetic lot that couldn't care less and would never do anything to right a wrong or to right an injustice. And that was proved false, I think, during the days before August 27th when you were scheduled to be executed, when people from around the world, really stood up and would not allow you to be killed in silence and in the shadows. And everywhere we go on tour, support for your case is incredible. The graffiti in Madrid and in Detroit is about Mumia.
Along with John Africa.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing to hear. And I'd like to see, that kind of support generated from my brothers and sisters because, people can look at my case and say, oh, well, here's a guy on death row. But if you've got a sentence of 3,200 years, or you've got a sentence of life, like they do virtually, well, I call that slow death row.
Yeah.
I mean, it's less dramatic in a sense, but the death is no less certain.
One of the things that I thought was so great about your last book, Live from Death Row, was just how angry it made the powers that be. Those are truths which shouldn't be told.
I don't give a damn who they are, who may have hated and opposed it. They haven't found one lie in there.
Right.
And that's because it's true about the repression that people suffer in these hellholes. And that's what they didn't want people to hear about. I'm being pulled. They're telling me I'm out of time.
Oh.
Probably one of the shortest phone calls in history because they're listening.
Right. Well, you've been on death row for more than 10 years, and Mumia, we will free you. And when you're out, we can't wait to have you on Radio Free LA in person.
Well, that's a bet. That's a date.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
And give my thanks to everybody in the band and everybody listening. On the move. Long live John Africa.
Take care of yourself in there.
Prisoners.
Thanks for calling from death row.
On the move.
On the move. The judge presiding at Mumia's trial, Judge Sabo, has sentenced more black men to die than any other judge in U.S. history and has openly sided with the prosecution in this case. This travesty of justice can be challenged. Phone the Mumia Abu Jamal Defense Committee at 215-476-8812 or email them at mumia@aol.com. That's MUMIA. Or write to P.O. Box 19709, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19143. In addition, you can phone the Campaign to End the Death Penalty at 773-409-7145. Also, if you're in the Philadelphia area on January 27th, go to City Hall after 9 a.m. to form a ring of justice around City Hall with Mumia's supporters. And now, Zach De La Rocha, Flea, Stephen Perkins, and me, Tom Morello, live on Radio Free Los Angeles.
On a solo like you're right alone. Fuck the track, the first fly like the family stone. If bad devils at the stage for the war at home. Back without a way, you standing in the drop zone. I'm black as born, staring at an empty plate. Mama's torn hands, cover a sunken face. We hungry but their belly full. The sucker is saying you can't change it with a rally pull. Ain't no rules as a devil for the toxic rock. School you on the precinct, some of the project block. Bosses broke shop for new flesh in the factory floor. The remains left chained to the power wall. Well, suckers get romantic. They ain't gonna say just camping like they did my man for Hampton, so we lamping. Still clapping dirt for our sweat. A balance dead, so a bullet's what I get. 1,000 years we had to do, we should be taking them. Fuck the G-Ride, I want the machines that are making them. Our target straight with a room full of raw pods. You want the kings on the west side of dawn. That's why I'm rolling down Rodeo with a shotgun. The rungs torn from the ladder, you can't reach the tumor. One God, one market, one truth, one consumer. The rungs torn from the ladder, can't reach the tumor. One God, one market, one truth, one consumer. The rungs torn from the ladder, can't reach the tumor. One God, one market, one truth, one consumer. Torn from the ladder, we can't reach the tumor. One God, one market, one truth, one consumer. The elections were a quiet, peaceful dance for the things they'll never let us have. The elections were a quiet, peaceful dance for the things they will never let us have. The elections were a quiet, peaceful dance for the things they will never let us have. The elections were a quiet, peaceful dance for the things they will never let us have. Come on! Check it! Birds on the networks, where they know yeah. I'm took the boogie to bed, let them hang while I'm paranoid, trying to stop the void. Let's capture this mayhem, mayhem on track, and blessed by the Lord. The power pendulum swings by the umbilical cord. Shock around the clock from noon till noon. Make grabbing their minds and stuff them into the womb. Terrorize the products you push. What I'm a true daddy? Oh shit, I got a head rush. The sea trembling, here come the folks. Throat from the throat, dangers and scapegoats. On crossing the mics, a detonator unwound. And shut down the devil's sound. Shut down the devil's sound. Check it. Flex the cerebellum. Fire. Somebody gotta shell him. Leave evil angels lit. Hit in the AM playlist. Paid to say this. That one's illegal. Inhuman. Single. Woman. The woman out of movement. The transmission whipping our backs. We're coming down like bats. So Stacy cool. Terror's the products you push. Well, I'm a true daddy. Oh shit, I got a head rush. The sea tremble, here come the folks. Throw from the throne, new cages and scapegoats. One caution, the mics, a detonator unwound. Let's shut down the devil's sound. Shut down the devil's sound. Yeah. Shut down the devil's sound. Shut down the devil's sound. Your only God, and fear is your only God, and fear is your only God, fear is your only God, fear is your only God, fear is your only God. Fear is your only God. Fear is your only God. check it. I got no card, so I got no soul. Life of prison, no parole, no control. Who'da got my number on a wiretap? Cause I jack for Similac. Fuck a Cadillac, survive. One motive, no hope, cause every sidewalk I walk is like a tightrope. Yes, I know my deadline, sire, is when my life expires, so I'm sending paper south under the barbed wire. The mother of my child will lose her mind at my grave. It's my life for their life, so call it a free trade. But either am my name upon the store. I took a death trip when I tried to cross the white wall. When I tried to cross the white wall. When I tried to cross the white wall. Yo, I try to look back to my past long lost. A blood donor to the land on the Holocaust. Pop's heart stopped, it came the airdrop. Flooded the trench, he couldn't shake the toxic shock. My east was all we needed to sustain. Now a golden skin burns, insecticide rain. You're down with DDT? Yeah, you know me. I'm right for the grapes, profit from the bourgeoisie. War tape booming, package luminoso. I'm heading up like my name was Kid Cisco to survive. One motive, no hope. It's hard to breathe with Wilson's hand around my throat. Strangled and mangled, another SS curtain call. When I tried to cross the white wall. 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 Past the graves and the gates. I was born without a face. I walk unseen past the graves and the gates. I was born without a face. I walk unseen past the graves and the gates. I was born without a face. You say, fortify, reaction, you divine. You say, fortify, reaction. You say, fortify, reaction, you divine. You say, fortify, reaction.
To Radio Free LA, and we're so confident you've been brainwashed and indoctrinated with the thinly disguised propaganda of music and humor that if you want your damn money back, write the FCC.
I am pleased to report that Operation Desert Storm is right on schedule. The United States met every overture of peace with open contempt. Step by step, we forced the world into war despite the world's prayers for peace. We are severely degrading the United Nations, and that's why Secretary of State Baker and Treasury Secretary Brady have met with many world leaders with the aim of profiteering from this crisis. Most countries share our concern for principle, and many have a stake in contravention of international law. Our pinpoint attacks strike at population centers. And let me say, I have every reason to be very pleased with our tools of terror. This is the first assault in which the nations of the world can no longer count on East-West confrontation to stymie American ambitions. A new world order can emerge. A world where the rule of the jungle supplants the rule of law. A world where there will be a lasting role for a sound defense budget. American interests are far-reaching, and they remind us we are more economically vulnerable. And if, with the Congress, we can develop a dependence on higher defense costs, there will be a lasting role for inhumane aggression, principles that you have pledged to defend. One more proof of the savagery in this country. And that's why they sweat and toil in the sand and the heat and the sun. And the whole world knows it.
Welcome to the second thrill-packed hour of Radio Free Los Angeles. I'm Tom Morello, and in the next hour, we've got live performances from Cypress Hill, and once again, Zach De La Rocha, Flea, Stephen Perkins, and myself will be playing some more rock later on. But right now, our inaugural night correspondent, Michael Moore.
Thanks again, guys. This is Michael Moore here, and well, as you can see, the festivities here on Radio Free LA tonight are not enough to bring the Clintons over here to the party. So I guess, if I had a chance, I would love to talk to Bill Clinton for 5 or 10 minutes and ask him to give me sort of a definition of terms. When he says he wants to end welfare as we know it, and he got that big welfare bill passed last year that took, just like grabbed and yanked the rug out from underneath millions of poor children, right? I'd like to ask him, Bill, what do you mean by the word welfare? Because actually in this country, corporations receive 3 times as much welfare, corporate welfare, than poor people do. $170 billion a year goes out from our tax money in free handouts to companies throughout the country. Only $50 billion goes to social welfare, so it's 3 times as much. And yet we never discuss this when we talk about these welfare cheats and chiselers. We never talk about these corporations, these CEOs like, Exxon got a $300 million tax deduction for cleaning up their own oil spill up in Alaska. I mean, they actually got to make money for polluting the environment. McDonald's gets $1.5 million of our tax money to help them promote Chicken McNuggets in Singapore. Pillsbury got $11 million to help them promote the Pillsbury Doughboy in third world countries. This is welfare, and yet we never discuss cutting this kind of welfare. And these companies can pay for these things themselves. Why, I have this plan that actually, I think if we just got rid of corporate welfare, think we'd have $170 billion laying around to do some good with, to create some jobs, to, better the environment, whatever. But of course, we don't talk about it in that way. We always, when we say the word welfare, we want to think of that person living in the inner city with all those kids. And that's who we want to vent all the anger toward, blame that young person who's trying to raise a family. I think it's disgusting and it's immoral. Another term I don't understand, when Clinton talks about the crime rate is down. All this crime. When you say the word crime, what do you think? A mugger, a burglar, a murderer, an arsonist. And yet, in this country, we lose 4 times as much money to corporate fraud than we do to all burglaries combined. We lose twice as many people due to deaths on the job because of unsafe working conditions each year in this country than all handgun murders combined. Yet when we talk about murder, we think about somebody with a gun out on the street. We never think of the company that has this unsafe working condition that causes someone to lose their life. We never talk about corporate fraud as the true kind of theft and burglary in this country. We never discuss that, and I'm frankly getting sick and tired of it. And I think we really need to, do what we can to redefine these terms, and to say to companies like General Motors, if you made $7 billion in profit last year, which they did, you shouldn't be laying off 3,000 people. In fact, we need a law that prohibits them from doing that. I know some people listening to this right now are going to go, well, Mike, companies got a right to do whatever it can do to make a profit. That's what our system's all about, profit. And I say, well, you know what? That's not our system. I've read the Constitution, and the word shareholder doesn't appear anywhere in that document. That's not what our system's about. It's not just about making a profit. It's just about making a profit. Why doesn't General Motors sell crack cocaine? They'd make a huge profit on it. Why don't they sell it? Because we don't let them sell it. Why don't we let them sell it? Well, because we think it destroys our communities. You know, we have an ethic about that, so we make it illegal. Well, I say if General Motors is going to lay off 3,000 people in my hometown this year, as they are doing, at a time when they're making a $7 billion profit, that's immoral. That's unethical. That destroys people's lives. And that has to stop. And we have to make that illegal. Well, there you go. I guess I should have been at the Niagara tonight and had a little bit of champagne to calm me down. But I don't know. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. And I think that all of us have got to get out there and get involved and, you know, let them party on in Washington tonight. What the hell do we care, right?
That was Michael Moore on Radio Free Los Angeles. Okay, now we have the Who Pockets the Difference segment of Radio Free LA. And with us is community organizer with Unite, the Garment Workers Union, Susie Hoffman. Susie, who pockets the difference?
Well, guess who pockets the difference? Guess makes millions selling clothes made in sweatshops. Those high-priced fashions that are sold in trendy Guess boutiques and upscale department stores are sewn under conditions of misery, right here in the United States. Take a look behind the Guess label. Guess sells their jeans for $75 a pair, but garment workers who make these jeans are only paid $1.86 for each pair of jeans sewn. Thousands of workers toil in Los Angeles sweatshops. Many workers make less than minimum wage. Some workers sew Guess clothes all day in sweatshops and then sew Guess clothing late into the night in their homes, a practice that was banned decades ago because of the high probability of child labor violations. Many workers don't get paid overtime. Workers in these shops don't get health insurance, sick days, paid vacations, or holidays. Workers get paid pennies, consumers pay through the nose, and the owners of Guess live a life of luxury. In fact, the three owners of Guess, Maurice, Paul, and Armand Marciano, took home $250 million over the past 3 years. That's who pockets the difference. Guess is betting that you don't care what goes on behind their label. They think that all you care about is fashion. But we know that they are wrong. Hundreds of student groups, community organizations, and unions throughout the country have taken action in support of these struggling garment workers. We ask that you join in telling Guess that they must treat their workers with dignity and respect. Boycott Guess products, come out and join workers in a picket line outside of a Guess store, or show solidarity through your organization by drafting a resolution in support of the workers. Let Guess know how you feel by emailing them at feedback@guess.com or give them a call at 1-800-39-GUESS or call me, Susie Hoffman, at the Garment Workers Union at 213-239-6520 in Los Angeles or at 1-800-872-8646. This is Susie Hoffman on Radio Free LA saying don't buy Guess.
Thank you very much, Susie. Noam Chomsky is America's leading dissident intellectual, arguably the most important intellectual alive, according to the New York Times. No one has exposed more logically America's acclaimed freedoms as masking irresponsible power and unjustified privilege. Noam is a professor at MIT in Boston, and his books are very popular reading on the Rage Against the Machine tour bus. We're very privileged to have him on the show. Hi, Noam.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome to Radio Free Los Angeles. One of the unquestionable ideas that were force-fed from our first days in school is that we do live in a democracy. In your opinion, in what sense is our society democratic?
Well, I should say that if that's true, an awful lot of people don't believe it. There's the Gallup poll for years has been regularly asking people who they think the government works for. And it's usually been running about 50% saying the few and the special interests, not the people. Last year went up to 82%.
Wow.
So that's at least what the public thinks about it. I mean, basically, the question is to what extent do people have a meaningful way of developing and articulating their own ideas and putting them forward in the political arena. I mean, the whole corporate system. And they have extraordinary power over not only what happens in the workplace, but the nature of our lives and given their resources over the political system. And you can't say they control the media because they are the media. And that's an enormous, huge sector of life that's out of public influence and control in a manner which would have absolutely appalled someone like, say, Thomas Jefferson.
You've noted that 83% of the population regard our economic system as inherently unfair. Is the gap between rich and poor increasing now, and why?
Oh, it's definitely increasing. I mean, there's no question about that. Inequality has been increasing. It declined a bit from around from the Second World War up until the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, it has been increasing. It's now back to back to the level of before the Great Depression. Profits, incidentally, are going through the roof. I mean, the business press can't even find adjectives anymore to express how marvelous things are. But for the general population, things are at best stagnant, and for most people, actually declining. In fact, you have to, a city like New York is about at the level of Guatemala, which is the worst state in the world in inequality.
You've also written that our education system is a system of indoctrination designed to induce obedience and passivity. Explain how this works.
I think we all know that from our own experience. Starting with kindergarten and first grade, the main requirement is that you do what you're told. If people don't, if they act, if they use their independence, if they question what they're told to do, if they try to think for themselves and suggest they want that something else ought to be done, they usually get into trouble pretty quickly. It's not uniform, but try it out on your history teacher in high school, saying, "I think that's a dumb assignment. I'd rather do something else." There's a kind of a filtering for obedience and subordination, and various penalties for independence.
What sort of society do you envision as one that would not be based on exploitation or domination, and how would we get there from here?
How you do it is very straightforward. You go out and do it.
Right.
You want to have a more free and democratic society, you go out and do it. People get together, they organize, they pressure, they try to learn, they try to help others to learn. That's the way things change. That's why we don't live under feudalism and slavery.
Right.
There's no reason why corporate tyranny, which is a fairly recent development, I mean, its institutional form is from the early part of this century. There's no reason why that form of tyranny should not be dismantled, just as other kinds of totalitarianism were dismantled. Every such form of authority has to demonstrate its legitimacy. They have the burden of proof, and we should understand that. Usually, very often, almost always, that burden can't be met. When it can't be met, they should simply be dismantled. And that's the way to move towards a more free and just and democratic society.
Well, Noam, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Noam Chomsky has written innumerable books, all worth checking out, and there's a great and informative documentary about him and his ideas called Manufacturing Consent. Hopefully, in a little bit, we're going to take some live phone calls. So call up Radio Free Los Angeles this is a toll-free number. Even though it's not an 800 number, it's still a toll-free number. It's 1-888-747-3697. And in a little bit, we're going to have more rock from Zach De La Rocha, me, Flea, and Stephen Perkins. But right now, let's cut live on Radio Free LA to Cypress Hill.
Once again, let your mind open to the Cypress Hill experience.
right. Come on.
Yeah. Coming to you live in 97.
Radio
That's
free.
right.
Come on. Get it. Come on.
Fuck all y'all coming off the wall. I got a nigga from the source swinging from my balls. I want you to set it. Well, my Mac 11 takes and let it rain. A second of fire, what you seeing when I'm taking shit another level higher. Now it's on. They getting domed. Fucking these punk niggas till they all gone. Now we got roll to the east side of town and I'm looking for a fat boy and a lot of shade of brown. Better move yo ass to this Mac 11 pointed at your ass from the 187. I'm the head hunter, you going under. Make a trophy, call it the two-headed buster. On my mantle, back in the temple, giving up the family. Yeah, fuck nothing, anybody looking for a wide body, one body, some be testing. Smile on my face. 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 That's right, all y'all in Radio Land. Tonight y'all are experiencing no censorship. No, we ain't going out like Humpty Dumpty. Homie, you still wanna bump me? Still got the hand on the pump and now I'm dumping on them. Somebody, anybody. When I got the gap with the big red beam, now what if I move it up right between your eyes? Then your chances are narrow when you're looking at the smoke at the end of the barrel. When you're gonna run when you can't move. 781 red rum with the tie him up, throw him in the trunk, let the funk blow his eardrums out till he's bleeding.
Let's get weeded.
It's the funk Buddha, let me do the ceremonial with the hoodah. Some be testing. Smile on my face. 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 Once again, the powers of the hill. Open up your mind to what's real. 97 bringing a lot of new things. And one of these things is happening right now. It's all good.
Sácalo, muévelo ya. Let's be real.
Smoking MCs like a bowl of Buddha burning in my bong. Now you don't wanna step to the rhythm of the funk degrees. You'll be a prisoner in the temple of thieves. Move them out, just move them all out. No doubt, we the number one crew kicking all gas. Niggas out the house kicking up an argument. Just don't bother, cause I whoop that ass just like I'm your father. Take heed to the master's call.
Yes, yo. Break it simple, cause the faith the mom.
Bullets fly, but they don't give a fuck about who dies when you're in the middle of the bucket. No question, confrontation, nowhere to run from the assassination. Let the rain come down.
There goes another body on the ground.
It's the undisputed Cypress family. Kicking up dust, can you handle us? Gradually growing inside your mind like a tumor.
Spit it in your hand like a rumor.
Venomous sounds from the underground. We take care of business.
Yeah. What the fuck is that?
Sácalos, muévelos ya. 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 Sácalos, muévelos ya.
Puto vienen de todas medidas y clases. Te agarró con el mecate por el cuello pa' colgarte. Tú no puedes respirar. Tú necesitas de la mota que te voy a dar.
Like a puppet on the string, I'm the one controlling your ass with the rough shit that I bring. My only grows like Buddha, a soldier. Every seed planet is another fucking soldier. Like a coup d'etat, there you are in the middle of the ambush.
Suck in your core.
Shit can't find ya at the bottom of the lake. Let me remind ya,
You better be looking behind ya.
it's too late, ain't nobody standing here. Hallucination, bees humming in your ear. Paranoia, dwelling through your dome piece. Increase the level of the terror that won't cease. Move on down. Move 'em up, move 'em on down. Move 'em out, move 'em on now. Move 'em out, move 'em on now. Come on. That's right. But let the alley cat, some say you're dirty rat on my side. This my cat, say you're all of that. Better not book shots, but I'm gonna wet you. Running high, but I'm still coming to get you. Kicking like a pig smoke, coming on the homicide. And you talking shit, trying to take me for a ride. I'm not a bad guy, but I'm the focus. I'm on the trigger with my hands upon the steel, letting out a bullet. Is this going boom? Stuck in my hood, so what you gonna do now? Being the hunted one ain't no fun. Here I come, punk.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna come.
Better run more and move a little faster. And I'm coming to blast ya. Sawed off shotgun, hand on the palm, left hand on the 40. Fuck my shotgun. La 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 la.
Ain't to the motherfucking K, homeboy. Ain't to the motherfucking K. Ain't to the K. Motherfucking K, homeboy. Yeah, ain't to the motherfucking K.
Ain't to the K.
Ain't to the motherfucking K.
Ain't to the K.
Ain't to the motherfucking K, homeboy. Ain't to the motherfucking K.
Coming at you with the step flow, fucking up your program, ain't taking shit. Mastermind, maniac, and a menace. Oh, how they wanna kick a sentence? All because a nigga try to play me on the trigger, they miss. So what them suckers test, I'm rude and crude like a perro. Get to the point. I'm headed up the river with a bow and no paddle. I'm heading out beat down. Headed up the river with a bow and no paddle. And I'm heading out beat down. Put me in chains, beat my brains. I'ma get out, but the grudge remain. When I see ya punk ass, I'm gonna get ya.
Get ya.
Do ya.
Booyah.
Go.
Booyah.
Start off shotgun, hand on the palm, left hand on the 40. When I pop my shotgun, they say la 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 la.
Shoot 'em up, jump up, shoot 'em up, just shoot 'em up, shoot 'em up, shoot 'em up, just shoot 'em up, oh yeah, shoot 'em up, just shoot 'em up, shoot 'em up, just shoot 'em up, oh yeah, shoot 'em up, just shoot 'em up, shoot 'em up, just shoot 'em up, oh yeah, shoot 'em up, just shoot 'em up.
Kicking that funky Cypress Hill shit, I think I load a clip. Let's see if you can deal with it, cause they bulletproof vest ain't shit. With the infrared pointing at your head, kid. Now that's just too bad, yo. Now I'm headed up the river with the boat and no paddle. Should've put the Glock down. Now they got me in lockdown. Living like a local, they done lost his mind, cause I ain't going out. Some say life is a bitch. That's that punk, that dog, its own ditch. Up on the hill, fucking up at a party.
Put a hole in the body.
La 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 la. Look at all of those finna roll cars, cause of the sword off shotgun. Hand on the palm, left hand on the 40.
Pumping on the blood.
Put my shotgun. They said la 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 la.
Shoot 'em up, just shoot 'em up, oh yeah. Shoot 'em up, just shoot 'em up.
Shoot 'em up.
Shoot 'em up, just shoot 'em up, oh yeah. Shoot 'em up, just shoot 'em
In the
up.
midst of the madness, no question. Who's the baddest? MCs in the game looking for the status. Take a few seconds to review the crews. Sitting on top, looking over you, killer hill niggas. Cream in my dream, cooking up a scheme for all the big red figures. The world is yours, but it can be mine and his. Bust you out the frame.
I don't give a fuck who it is.
Number one mission, opposition. Get them sent home in dead position.
That's right.
In the casket, best wishes. At the bottom of the lake, sleeping with the fishes. Full on search for the body of the MCs who been coming to disrupt the party. No ends, no wins, no way, and I'm never gonna let you come back again.
Encadenado, al colado, me vale madre, mal vago, en Califa tan entrado, encerrado, y todos los pinchicholos marcados, con 213, el sur, barrio que rifamos, digo, todos estos matos me quieren dejar doblado, todo frío,
Got squeeze up on the trigger, and I'm never gonna let you come back again. He's back up, I squeeze up on the trigger, and I'm never gonna let you come back again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was Cypress Hill live on Radio Free LA. Radio Free LA is also going out live on the internet at www.radiofreela.com. And all the interviews from tonight's show, Leonard Peltier, Mumia Abu-Jamal, Noam Chomsky, and the ones that are still coming, are all going to be on there for eternity. So you can check that out and read them in their full length. All right, so next up, we've got Amy Ray from the Indigo Girls on the phone right now. Amy.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Georgia.
All right, on. We just talked to Chuck D from Georgia. So what's going on?
Well, I just wanted to call in to commend you on doing this show and on the people that you're interviewing, because I think there's a common link, obviously, among all this. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. This past couple of years, there's a couple experiences I had. One of them was going down to Chiapas, and the other was I toured for a month through Indian reservations, raising money to fund different environmental projects and grassroots efforts for sustainable community development in Indian country. And a couple of things I learned were the importance of resistance and the dignity of the human heart, and self-respect. And when I was down in Chiapas, I met a guy who has his own label in Guatemala, and he spent the first couple years having to hide his label from the government because he was considered to be doing something really subversive and was sort of in fear of his life doing it. And things have gotten a little better there, but it made me realize how important it is here. While I know we still have political prisoners in the U.S. and censorship, we still have more avenues, to be subversive and to take advantage of. And it reminded me, and it validated the idea of doing shows like this, of speaking out, and especially if you're in, a position of, high profile, because you're really protected by that.
Right.
And there's no excuse to not do something.
Right. And there's always some cracks in the system that you can exploit,
Totally.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for people to have self-respect and realize they can make a difference and step out and do things within their own realms. Whatever you're good at, use it.
Absolutely. Well,
so that's kind of what I wanted to put in there. Another thing was that we do have this record out called Honor that raises money for the fund that I started, the Honor the Earth Fund, and the money goes directly to grassroots efforts to defend homelands in the Americas of indigenous people and develop their communities.
Cool.
And
it's an Indigo Girls record?
It's 20 different artists, ranging from like Bonnie Raitt, Toad the Wet Sprocket, to like Exene Cervenka from X, and indigenous artists like John Trudell, Keith Secola, and it's a cool record. There's a lot of information in the package and a lot of good music, and it's out there for sale. And basically the message is we're all fighting, racism, sexism, homophobia, basic intolerance, and things that are brought on by our, the globalization of the economy, the capitalist sort of movement, and sort of the results of Manifest Destiny in the Americas.
Yeah, it's good to remember there are a lot of people that are also pissed off. And you're not alone.
Yeah, it's like a celebration of pissed off people.
Right. All right, Amy. Thank you very much for calling Radio Free Los Angeles.
All right,
we'll talk
good
to you
luck.
soon then. Okay,
Okay,
thanks. Bye-bye. Immediately following the Subcomandante Marcos interview, we'll be bringing you more live music from Zach De La Rocha, Flea, Stephen Perkins, and myself, Tom Morello, on Radio Free LA. And now here's Zach on Radio Free Los Angeles.
A fire had to be set to the master's house. The voices of the hemisphere's most poor echoed throughout the Americas as thousands of Mexican indigenous Mayan farmers, malnourished and poorly armed, seized 8 cities in Mexico's southeastern state of Chiapas on New Year's Day of 1994. In San Cristobal de las Casas, tourists from all over the U.S. and Europe converge upon its marketplaces to shop and dine in a city where everything is expensive except indigenous death. Often, they ignore the starvation and disease that infest surrounding shanty towns and line the alleyways of this so-called colonial city. At 4 a.m., while resting comfortably in their hotel rooms, they were awakened by gunfire. 400 masked men and women converged, almost unseen, upon the municipal palace, breaking into its second-story offices, spewing the files of the city's records onto the street. In the aftermath, a crowd gathered to listen to a statement issued by the rebels which expressed the core sentiments of a people forced to take up arms against their government. We are the product of 500 years of struggle, first against slavery, then during the War of Independence against Spain led by insurgents, then to avoid being absorbed by North American imperialism. People rebelled, and leaders like Villa and Zapata emerged, poor people just like us. We have been denied the most elemental preparation, so they can use us as cannon fodder and pillage the wealth of our country. But today we say enough is enough. We are the inheritors of the true builders of our nation. The dispossessed, we are millions, and we thereby call upon our brothers and sisters to join this struggle as the only path, so that we will not die of hunger due to the insatiable ambition of a 70-year dictatorship led by a clique of traitors who represent the most conservative and sellout groups. The rebellion coincided with the implementation of the disastrous North American Free Trade Agreement, lauded by both the Bush and Clinton administrations. NAFTA granted legal protection for automobile corporations like General Motors and other manufacturers to move entire production plants and export hundreds of thousands of jobs outside the country. Fortune 500 companies and their shareholders got fat profits, while hundreds of thousands of families stood jobless and hungry. The effects in Mexico were even more extreme. In 1992, the president of Mexico's ruling party abolished Article 27 of the Mexican Constitution, the article which guaranteed the distribution of communally owned lands to poor farmers all over Mexico. This article, thrown out by Salinas like this morning's garbage, was the amendment created by the Mexican Revolution of 1910, in which 1 million poor people fought and died to institute. Subcomandante Marcos has become one of the EZLN's most eloquent spokespersons, part political and military strategist, part poet-warrior, part translator between the indigenous and modern worlds. We spoke with him about the current situation in Chiapas and other things concerning the struggle. And now, Subcomandante Marcos on Radio Free Los Angeles. We want to thank you very much for the opportunity you've given us to interview you today.
Very glad that people in the United States are concerned with having the voice of the Zapatistas. We'd like to take the time to explain a little about our words, our way of thinking, and the actual situation. What happens on January 1st of '94 is the culmination of a conspiratorial process to give a slam the door in the House of History. This was about a desperate situation in the communities with a high infant mortality rate, with terrible health conditions, nutrition, problems of the land, repression. The ideal framework for an ethnocide of huge proportions. Before that situation, the indigenous communities decide to say enough and make themselves known.
In what ways is the government of the United States and the interest of the businessmen of capital in the United States affecting Mexico, affecting the struggle of the EZLN?
The problem is that when we talk about the power of the United States, we should not confuse the United States government with the people of the United States. For the powerful of the United States, the world is a huge mall. It has department stores. In this case, Mexico is a department store which sells oil and labor. People, Chicanos, to call them something. Sometimes it's cheaper to keep them in the United States. If not, you have to kill them or chase them or send them back. It doesn't mean that the people of the United States share those feelings or those expectations. A lot of times they suffer because of them.
What are your opinions of the International Monetary Fund, of the mass media, and of rock and roll?
These are very different issues. The IMF is a huge criminal, like any gangster, but it dresses elegantly and makes these great decisions and kills without staining its hands. With just one decision it makes, the IMF, when it approves a loan, can decree death for millions of human beings or condemns them to a life without dignity. In terms of the media, in one way, they say everything that isn't reality because it benefits those in power. Now, this about rock and roll. For rock and roll, there aren't any borders, nor are there no customs checkpoints or
border patrol ni nada, pues que la detenga.
nor
Todas esas cosas
border
que tiene que
patrol which
padecer
can stop
cualquier.
it.
El rock and roll, pienso yo, es sobre todo un desafío.
Defiance.
Un desafío. Realmente de las tres cosas me quedo con el rock and roll.
I'll keep rock and roll.
Los medios masivos,
Of the IMF, mass media, and rock and roll, I'll keep rock and roll.
Very well, thank you. The next question, what message would you give to young people in the United States?
So, generally for young people in the United States, we would ask them not to let themselves be deceived, to always keep that freshness and the capacity to wonder in order to see that the world deserves another chance. Not just because of them, the young ones, but because of the children and other generations who deserve a chance which is not going to come from the ones in power. The chance is not going to be a concession from some God, no matter the religion. That chance is not going to come from an invasion by extraterrestrials either. That chance can only be given by us, by our fighting in our own place, in our own medium. And I'm not talking about going to the mountain and taking a rifle or going to Chiapas. I'm talking about each person with their own weapon. Sometimes this weapon is a word, a pen. Sometimes it is your hands, a machine. In their place, in their country, in their medium, they can fight for giving this world a chance to become better. We deserve another world. We don't have to settle for, nor endure, nor suffer the world which the powerful has passed on to us. That's my message.
Thank you so much, Subcomandante, for being here with us on Radio Free Los Angeles. The negotiations between the Zapatistas and the government of Mexico continue to be strained by a government who does not take seriously the proposals to amend the Constitution regarding indigenous land and cultural rights, thus bringing the conflict closer to war. The communities in rebellion now stand surrounded by 50,000 Mexican national troops, armed and financed by guess who? That's right, the United States, the world's largest arms dealer. Although the Bell helicopters and AR-15 rifles occasionally get fired on peasants, rape and forced starvation are weapons more commonly used. Besides, guns and bombs make too much noise. If there's blood that you can actually see, you run the small risk that NBC, CBS, and the LA Times might cover it. And that's oh so bad for tourism and investment. This is Zach De La Rocha for Radio Free Los Angeles.
Like this. Since 1516, minds attacked and overseen. That's all amidst the ruins of this empty tree. With their borders and boots on top of us, pulling out on the floor on their toxic metropolis. But how you gonna get what you need to get? The gut eaters, blood trends get offensive like death. The fifth sunsets get back for clear. The spirit of whatever, alive and undead. I made the fuck now, blasting out your speaker. 101. Mexica, the most of the trying to steal your name, but now you found a gun. This is for the people of the sun. Yeah. For the people of the sun. This is for the people of the sun. Never forget, let the whip snap your back. Let's find the rack, front your back. Oh, I'm the Buffalo man. A pass blasting on through the verses. Brigade the taxi cabs, rolling Broadway like horses. Fruit ripping suits, shots of red mist. Say the smell of the death. Home says the resident, this new era of terror. Check the photo lens. And a city of angels of the ethnic land. Heads bobbing to the funk out your speaker. 101, fire, Mexica. The motor king are trying to steal your name, but now you found a gun. Your history, this is for the people of the sun. 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 Of the sun. Check. Leg off the shot, my story shock you like Ellison. Mainline adrenaline, guys of the tenement. From the basement I'm dwelling in, I clock back the sling, stone a settler. Breaks him off clean, call me the upsetter. Here come the hands on the leashes, the cross, the capital, the pale families, the fear in their mouthpieces. The single sister lynch, the cell doors crash, and the master's drums echo. The master's drums echo. The master's drums echo. The master's drums echo. Check. This hits like fish, bum with the left and don't miss. This hits like fish, bum with the left and don't miss. This hits like fish, bum with the left and don't miss. This hits like fish, bum with the left and don't miss. The master's drums echo. The master's drums echo. The master's drums echo. Lick off the shot, my story shock you like Ellison. Mainline adrenaline, guys of the tenement. From the basement I'm dwelling in, I clock back the sling, stone a settler. Breaks them up clean, call me the upsetter. Here come the hands on the leashes, the cross, the capital, the pale families, the fear in their mouthpieces. The single sister lynch, the cell doors crash, and the master's drums echo. The master's drums echo. The master's drums echo. The master's drums echo. Like this. This microphone explodes, shattering the molds. Either trumpet hits the thing like, oh, get the fuck up the commode with the short shot. Sure to make the bodies drop, dropping no copy, yo. No code, it's a co-op. Terror rain, stretch, quits in the thirst of the power dawn. That five-sided fist are gone. And riot sore on the face of the earth gets bigger. The triggers go empty your purse. Rally round the family. Rally round the family. With a pocket full of shells. Weapons, not food, not hopes, not shoes, not need, just feed the war cannibal animal. I walk the corner to the rubble. That used to be a library lined up to the mine cemetery now. Well, we don't know, keeps the contracts alive and moving. They don't gotta burn the book fingers for moving. While arms warehouses will as quick as a sound. Rally round the family, pocket full of shell. With a pocket full of shell. Hey. With a pocket full of shell. Bulls on parade. 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 Bulls on parade! 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 Flip this capital eclipse. The vocal tone has got them sweating their own apocalypse. Yes, the rebels of the grains, they're masterless. The mass once capped one, and after the new disaster. And yes, we in with the wind and the plan de Ayala's kid coming back around again. The snake tribe of saliva, one night power turns. Them devils mount dry, now Mexico burns. So here they come one by one, the killers of the new frontier. To occupy, we lost in fear. We are the wind below. We are the wind below. We in with the wind below. Flip this capital eclipse. They're very light with IMF ships and poison lips. Yo, they talking while slicing our veins so walking from the freakers overseers to the vultures playing markets. She ain't got nothing but weapon and shawl. She is drawn so zeal to hold her miles out down. The tools are her tools, and he those in ovaries. She wants strangle, not through a barrel she breathes. She is the wind below. She is the wind below. She is the wind below. And we in with the wind below. Shareholders gonna flex and try to annex the truth. All the shareholders gonna flex and try to annex the truth. And while the new trust is gonna flex and cast their image in you. And all the shareholders gonna flex and try to annex the truth. And while the new trust is gonna flex and cast their image in you. And GE is gonna flex and try to annex the truth. And NBC is gonna flex and cast their image in you. Disney bought the fantasies in piles of eyes. And ABC's new thrill rides of trials and lies. And while the gut eaters strain to pull the mud from their mouths, they pull the ears from they pull our ears from it. They pull our ears from it. And we ain't with the wind below. With the wind below. Where we in with the wind below. sisters are in, so check the front line. You see, I spent the 80s in the Hades state of mind. Catch me in the glasses for electro shock. Straight incarcerated, curriculum's a cell block. I'm swimming in hand tools and it makes me want to spit. Instructor come separate the healthy from the sick. You aim me on a scale, smelling burnt skin. It's dark now and dark out and I'm screaming from within. Cause I'm still locked in the doctrines of the right. Enslaved by dogma, you talk about my birthright. Yeah, at every turn I'm running into hell's gates. So I grip the cannon like Venona past the shell to my classmates. I got no property, but yo, I'm a piece of it. I got no property, but yo, I'm a piece of it. I got no property, but yo, I'm a piece of it. I got no property, but yo, I'm a piece of it. So check the front line. You see, I spent the 80s in the Hades state of mind. Catch me in the glasses for electro shock. Straight incarcerated. The curriculum's a self-lock. Swimming in hand tools and it makes me wanna spit. Better come separate the healthy from the sick. You hear me on a scale. I'm smelling burnt skin. It's dark now and dark out and I'm screaming from within. It's worth more than her work. So pass the brush to the pugilist. He's a prize fighter. And he bought rings and he owns kin. And now he's swinging. And now he's a champion.
The complete interviews aired on the show can be accessed at radiofreela.com or send a stamped, self-addressed 9x12 manila envelope and $3 to Radio Free LA, 1223 Wilshire Boulevard, Suite 487, Santa Monica, California, 90403. This has been Radio Free LA. Remember, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Thank you and good night.